discussing the topic called amplifiers. An amplifier is a digital electronic device or a circuit which is used to increase the magnitude of signal applied to its input. An amplifier is the generic term used to describe a circuit which produces an increased version of its input signal. However, not all amplifier circuits are the same, as they are classified according to their circuit configuration and mode of operations. In digital electronics, small signal amplifiers are commonly used devices as they have the ability to amplify a relatively small input signal, for example, from a sensor such as a photo device, into a much larger output signal to drive a relay, lamp, or loudspeaker, for example. There are many forms of electronic circuits classified as amplifiers. This begins from operational amplifier, small signal amplifier, large signal, and power amplifiers. The classification of an amplifier depends upon the size of the signal, either it is large or small, its physical configuration, and how it produces the input signal, and how it processes the input signal. That is the relationship between the input signal and current flowing in the load. The different classifications of amplifiers are small signal amplifier and large signal amplifier. Based upon the configuration, they are known as common emitter, common base, and common collector. And the different classifications are Class A amplifier, Class B amplifier, Class AB amplifier, and Class C amplifier. And depending upon the operational frequency, they are classified as DC, that is direct current amplifier. Next one is AF, that is audio frequency amplifiers. Then RF, that is radio frequency amplifiers. And another category is VHF, UHF, and ESHF frequency amplifiers. An ideal signal amplifier will have three main properties. They are input resistance, output resistance, and the amplification factor, commonly known as gain factor. No matter how the complicated an amplifier circuit, a general amplifier model can still be show the relationship of these three different properties. So the amplified difference between the input and the output signal is known as the gain of the amplifier, and gain is basically a measure of how much an amplifier amplifies the input signal. For example, if we have an input signal of 1 volt and the output is 50 volt, then the gain of the amplifier would be 50, or in other words, the input signal has been increased by a factor of 50. This increase is known as gain. Amplifier gain is simply the ratio of the output divided by the input, and gain has no unit as it is a ratio, but in electronics it is commonly given the symbol A. A represents amplification. Then the gain of the amplifier is simply calculated as output signal divided by input signal, and we can either mention the capital A, which represents amplification. So when it comes to the amplifier gain, the different kinds of amplifier gains are voltage gain, current gain, and power gain. So the voltage gain is represented as output voltage divided by input voltage, that is V out by V in, and it is represented as A suffix V. The current gain is represented as A suffix I, which is equal to output current by input current, that is I out by I in. The third one is the power amplifier gain, that is power gain represented as A suffix P, which is equal to AV into AI. Here the power gain can also divide the power obtained at the output with the power obtained at the input. Also, when calculating the gain of the amplifier, the subscripts VI and P are used to denote the type of signal gain being used. The power gain or power level of the amplification can also be expressed in decibels, and also a positive value of decibel represents a gain and the negative value of decibel represents a loss within an amplifier. So when it comes to the different categories or classifications of electronic amplifiers, the classifications of an amplifier as either a voltage or a power amplifier is made by comparing the characteristic of input and output signal by measuring the amount of time in relation to the input signal that the current flow in the output circuit. We saw a common emitter transistor operates within an active region and some form of base biasing was required. This small base bias voltage added to the input signal allows the transistor to reproduce the full input waveform at its output with no loss of signal. However, by altering the position of this bias voltage, it is possible to operate an amplifier in an amplification mode other than that of full wave reproduction. With the introduction of amplifier of a base bias voltage, different operating range and mode of operation can be obtained, which are categorized according to their classification. These various mode of operation are better known as amplifier classes. Audio power amplifiers are classified in alphabetical order according to their circuit configuration and mode of operation. Amplifiers are designated by different classes of operation such as Class A, Class B, Class C and Class AB. These different amplifier class ranges from a near linear output but with a low efficiency to a non-linear output but with high efficiency. So as we mentioned, the class A amplifier has a low efficiency of less than 40% but good signal reproduction and linearity. In the class B amplifier, it is twice as efficient as class A amplifier with a maximum theoretical efficiency of about 70% because the amplifying device only contakes of half of its input signal. In the class AB amplifier, it has an efficiency rating between class A and class B but poor signal reproduction than class A amplifier. In the case of a class C amplifier, it is most efficient amplifier class but distortion is very high as only a small portion of the input signal is amplified. Therefore, the output signal bears very little resemblance to the input signal. The class C amplifiers have the worst signal reproduction. So my dear students, these are the different categories as well as the amplifier principles. So dear students, hope you had understood this topic. So my dear students, in the upcoming lecture, we will discuss the common emitter amplifier. So before that, kindly write down the assignment question. So our question is, write detailed notes on amplifiers. So dear students, in the upcoming lecture, we will discuss the common emitter amplifier. So dear students, see you soon. Until then, goodbye, thank you and all the best.